is he doing?
I don't reckon.
In today's video, we're diving down the rabbit hole to explore one of the most fascinating questions about Lewis Carroll's timeless classic, was Wonderland real, or was it all just a dream? And honestly, here's something even more intriguing. Why was Alice the one who got to experience this bizarre, topsy-turvy world in the first place? If you enjoy watching our video, why not consider giving us a like? And while you are doing that, you might as well smash the subscribe button and ring the bell icon too. Now, if you want to find out the answers to all these questions we have brought up, stick around because we're about to uncover some mind-blowing insights about this Victorian masterpiece that's been captivating readers for over 150 years.
Oh dear, I'll be so late.
The golden afternoon that started it all. Before we jump into whether Wonderland was real or imaginary, let me paint a picture for you. Imagine it's July 4th, 1862, and you're on a lazy boat ride down the River Isis near Oxford. Charles Dodgson, who we know better as Lewis Carroll, is rowing with his friend Robinson Duckworth and 3 young sisters, Lorena, Alice, and Edith Liedl. The girls are getting restless, and 10-year-old Alice Pleasance-Liedl asks Carroll to tell them a story. What happens next? Carroll improvises this incredible tale about a curious girl named Alice who falls down a rabbit hole into a world of absolute nonsense. Alice Liedl loved the story so much that she actually nagged, bossed and bullied Carroll into writing it down for her. Talk about persistence paying off. This wasn't just any story, it was inspired by a real girl with a personality described as stubborn, precocious and wildly curious. These exact traits would become the foundation for why our fictional Alice was the perfect candidate for adventures in Wonderland. The dream revelation. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, or should I say, the Cheshire Cat in Wonderland. Was it all real or just a dream? Here's the straightforward answer. It was most definitely a dream. At the very end of the story, Carroll makes this crystal clear. Alice wakes up on the riverbank with her head in her sister's lap, realizing that everything she experienced was a curious dream. Those playing cards rushing at her, they transform into dead leaves falling from the trees. That moment when she shouts, "You're nothing but a pack of cards," isn't just her standing up to the Queen of Hearts. It's Alice recognizing the illusory nature of Wonderland itself. She literally breaks the fourth wall of her own dream. And that realization is what jolts her back to reality. But hold on, because here's where it gets really interesting. Just because Wonderland was a dream doesn't make it any less significant or meaningful. Think about it. Dreams reveal so much about our unconscious minds, our fears, our desires, and our struggles with reality. Wonderland might have been imaginary, but what Alice experienced there reflected very real anxieties about growing up, losing her identity, and navigating a world that often doesn't make sense.
How can I be the wrong Alice when this is my dream? And who are you, if I might ask?
Why Alice was the chosen one. So why did only Alice see this dream? What made her special enough to be the protagonist of this fantastical journey? The answer lies in her unique personality traits and what she represented. Alice wasn't your typical Victorian child character. She was described by Carroll himself as loving and gentle, courteous to all, trustful, and wildly curious. That curiosity is absolutely crucial. The story literally begins with Alice feeling bored while her sister reads a book without pictures. She's daydreaming, letting her imagination run wild, questioning everything around her. When the White Rabbit appears, this bizarre creature wearing a waistcoat and checking a pocket watch, Alice doesn't dismiss it as impossible. Instead, she's burning with curiosity and follows him without thinking about the consequences. Children, especially curious ones like Alice, have this incredible capacity for wonder and imagination that adults often lose. They're eager to learn, willing to accept impossibilities, and haven't yet developed the cynicism that makes adults skeptical of magic. Alice represented that pure, uninhibited childhood curiosity before society's rules and expectations fully took hold. Her willingness to chase the White Rabbit, to eat and drink mysterious substances labelled "Eat Me," and drink me, to engage with nonsensical creatures. All of this showcases a mind open to exploring possibilities without the constraints of rigid adult logic. The real Alice behind the character. Honestly, understanding the real Alice Liedl helps us understand why Carol chose these specific characteristics. The real Alice was no quiet, obedient Victorian girl. She was stubborn and precocious, with a wondrous sense of curiosity that captivated Carol. She had this natural charm and fearlessness that made her stand out. When Carol was creating his fictional Alice, he borrowed these traits because they were perfect for a character who needed to navigate a world of complete chaos and illogic. Imagine being dropped into a place where nothing follows the rules you've learned. You'd need curiosity to explore it, stubbornness to persist through confusion, and precociousness to question authority when things don't make sense. Alice Liedl had all of this in spades, making her the ideal inspiration for a character embarking on such a journey.
There's a place called Wonderland. 6.
The symbolism of Alice's journey. Now, suppose we dig deeper into why Alice specifically had to be the one to experience Wonderland. The entire adventure serves as a metaphor for the transition from childhood to adulthood. Throughout the story, Alice constantly changes sizes, starting from growing absurdly tall to shrinking to tiny proportions. And these physical transformations symbolize the bewildering changes that happen during puberty and adolescence. Her body becomes unpredictable and uncontrollable, just like how children feel as they grow up, and their bodies change in ways they can't control. Alice's repeated question throughout the story is, "Who am I?" which reflects the identity crisis that accompanies growing up. When the caterpillar asks her this question, she responds, "I hardly know, sir. Just at present. At least I know who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have been changed several times since then." That confusion, that sense of losing yourself while becoming someone new, is something every person experiences while maturing.
Auntie's wooden leg. We'll paint it red and call it Fred or Ned or Ted.
The nature of Wonderland itself. Let me tell you something fascinating about Wonderland. It's not just a random collection of weird characters and nonsensical events. It's actually a carefully constructed psychological landscape representing Alice's unconscious mind. The Cheshire Cat, one of the most iconic characters, tells Alice something profound. "We're all mad here. I'm mad. You're mad." At first, this seems like typical Wonderland nonsense, but think about what it really means. In Wonderland, madness isn't negative at all. It's simply a different way of existing. The creatures there don't see themselves as crazy. They see Alice as the odd one for trying to apply her rigid, logical rules to their world. The cat is essentially telling Alice that to survive and navigate Wonderland, she needs to embrace a little bit of madness herself, to let go of her need for everything to make perfect sense. The chaos and the lesson. Remember the Queen's croquet match? Honestly, that scene perfectly encapsulates the chaos of Wonderland and what Alice learns from it. The croquet ground is ridged and uneven. The balls are live hedgehogs that scuttle away. The mallets are flamingos that keep looking back at the players. And the archers are playing cards that move around. There are no consistent rules, and the Queen randomly shouts for everyone's beheading. For Alice, who values order, logic, and clear rules, this is utterly frustrating. But this chaotic game teaches her something valuable, and that is that life doesn't always follow the rules we expect, and sometimes we need to adapt and be flexible, rather than insisting everything conform to our understanding. By the end of the game, Alice has learned to navigate the madness without losing herself completely. The White Rabbit and time. The White Rabbit deserves special attention because he's the catalyst for everything. His obsession with time, constantly checking his pocket watch and muttering, "I'm late! I'm late." This represents something deeper than just punctuality. The White Rabbit symbolizes the anxiety of the adult world, where time becomes rigid and schedules become paramount. He represents the transition from the freedom of childhood, where time is fluid and measured by experiences rather than clocks, to the structured world of adults bound by appointments and deadlines. Alice follows him because she's curious, but symbolically, she's following the path from childhood toward adulthood, from freedom toward responsibility. The ticking pocket watch is counting down the time Alice has left in her childhood, before she must face the adult world. Growing up and gaining control. Throughout her journey, as we previously stated, Alice struggles with her constantly changing size and her inability to control her own body. She drinks potions, eats cakes, and fans herself with a mysterious fan. Each action has unpredictable consequences. This physical instability mirrors her psychological instability as she grapples with questions of identity and selfhood. But here's the beautiful part. By the end of the story, Alice finally gains control. During the trial scene, she grows to her full size and maintains it. She stands up to the Queen, declares that they're nothing but a pack of cards, and consciously chooses to wake up. This represents Alice achieving a measure of maturity and self-awareness. She's no longer at the mercy of Wonderland's chaos. She recognizes it for what it is and takes control of her own reality. The sisters' dream and adult perspective. Something I find absolutely fascinating is that Carroll doesn't end the story with Alice waking up. Instead, he shifts the perspective to Alice's older sister. After Alice runs off to tea, her sister sits by the river and thinks about Alice's dream. She actually falls into her own dream about Wonderland, but unlike Alice, she can only half believe herself in Wonderland. She remains grounded in reality, aware that opening her eyes would return everything to dull reality. This contrast is so poignant. Alice could fully immerse herself in Wonderland because she's still a child with that pure, imaginative capacity. Her sister, being older, has already lost some of that ability. She yearns for it. She wants to experience that childlike wonder again, but she can't fully recapture it. The sister then envisions adult Alice sharing these stories with future children, keeping alive the sense of wonder even as she herself grows up. It's Carroll's way of showing us that while we must inevitably grow up and leave childhood behind, we can preserve and pass on that sense of imagination and curiosity. The Victorian context. Honestly, understanding the Victorian era adds another layer to why Alice was the perfect protagonist. Victorian society had very specific, often harsh expectations for children. Children were supposed to be seen and not heard, to act like miniature adults, to be punished for mistakes. Carroll's Alice books represented a rebellion against these ideas. Carroll believed children should be allowed to be children. They should be allowed to be curious, to make mistakes, to use their imagination. Alice's Adventures, where she questions authority, talks back to the Queen, and refuses to accept nonsense as fact, would have been somewhat revolutionary for the time. She represents a new vision of childhood, where curiosity is celebrated rather than punished, where imagination is valued rather than suppressed. The mathematical rebellion. Here's something I am sure you might not know, and that is the fact that Carroll was a mathematician, and some scholars believe Alice's Adventures were actually his way of satirizing new developments in mathematics, that he disagreed with. Carroll loved traditional, concrete mathematics, and he was frustrated by abstract concepts emerging in his time. The nonsensical logic of Wonderland, where nothing adds up correctly and rules constantly change, might have been Carroll's artistic protest against what he saw as the crazy direction mathematics was heading. But whether intentional or not, this mathematical chaos perfectly serves the story's larger themes about childhood, identity, and navigating a world that doesn't make sense. The answer to our question. So, circling back to our original questions, was Wonderland real or a dream? It was undeniably a dream, but that doesn't diminish its importance. Dreams are windows into our deepest thoughts, fears, and desires. Wonderland was Alice's unconscious mind, working through the very real anxieties of growing up, losing her identity, and facing a world that increasingly makes less sense. As for why Alice was the one to experience this world, because she had exactly the right combination of traits, including curiosity, imagination, courage, stubbornness, and that childlike willingness to accept the impossible. She was at the perfect age, caught between childhood and adolescence, when identity becomes fluid and confusing. She represented both the real Alice Liddell's personality and the universal experience of growing up. Marvelous verdict. A fascinating world. The beauty of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is that it works on so many levels simultaneously. It's a children's story, full of whimsy and nonsense. It's a coming-of-age tale about identity and growth. It's a critique of Victorian society and rigid adult logic. It's a celebration of childhood imagination and curiosity. Carol gave us a protagonist who could navigate all these layers because she embodied the very essence of childhood, that brief, precious period when we can fully embrace wonder before cynicism takes hold. Alice's dream of Wonderland reminds us that while we must eventually grow up and face reality, we should never completely abandon that curious, imaginative child within us. That's the real magic of the story, and that's why, over 150 years later, we're still following Alice down that rabbit hole, still asking questions, still exploring the boundaries between reality and dreams. Thanks for joining me on this journey through Wonderland, and if you liked my video, please comment down below if you think Alice really was in a dream or not.